Hi guys, Affinity Breakdown with another Reddit story time. Now, this one is going to be a special one. Today I'll be narrating a story from the user Tipsy Bumblebee. I've had the privilege to message him and get a few extra details, which I'll share as well. This is based on personal experiences, and I'll be linking both the story and the account down below. A small trigger warning, there is mention of cancer. Now, if you're ready, let's get into it. My 4-year-old. I have so many stories about my 4-year-old. Here's a little backstory on her. My mother-in-law had cancer that turned terminal, and while in hospice, my now ex-husband and I told her the secret that we were planning for a baby, and the names we had picked out if we were lucky enough to conceive again. The female name we picked was my mother-in-law's name as her middle. She was very happy about it, but unfortunately she passed away only a week later. 6 months later, I got the call from my doctor. I was finally pregnant. Since she was born, she had some creepy things, starting with her first smile. She was looking off into a corner of the room where nothing was and just smiled so big. As she got older, she would baby babble at the corner, like she was having full baby talk conversations. As she grew into a toddler, she became transfixed with finding my mother-in-law's old things. My ex was an only child, so we got everything when she passed away. She would tell us the things were hers, and she even correctly said where some things had come from, even though she shouldn't have known. The biggest time being when she woke up from a nap about a year ago. She was going on and on about this orange car that was her favorite, but she got in an accident and the car broke so bad she couldn't drive it anymore. After a talk with my ex, we showed her a picture of my mother-in-law's car from his childhood, and she lit up like a Christmas tree and explained, "My car! That's my favorite car! You found it!" My mother-in-law had gotten into a bad accident in it, and it was totaled. She found one of my brother's toys a couple weeks later and kept telling us she bought it. I asked when she bought it, and she said, "Before I got sick and died, before I was in mommy's belly." The toy was something my mother-in-law had ordered from her hospital room for my son's birthday, so we'd have one last gift from her. She has gotten into a full-blown argument with me about one of the rings my mother-in-law gave me because it's mine, I want it back. The most recent creepy thing she's done didn't involve anything of my mother-in-law's though. She was playing in the living room at my mom's house when she suddenly stopped and walks in front of the door. She stares outside for the longest time, so I finally ask her, "Yaya, baby, what are you looking at so seriously?" She says, "Mommy, there's just so many ghosts outside today. They want to play with me, but can't get inside." Good to know my mom's smudging and house blessing are holding strong. There's been so many more things she's said and done that threw us all off. I have joked with my ex many times that his mom loved me so much she decided to come back as my child. My relationship with her was so amazing. It kind of gives me peace thinking she came back as my baby, so I could repay everything she did for me while she was still alive. She's 6 now, and there have been a few more creepy things that have happened since this was posted. She just seems to understand things better than a normal kid her age would. She's very mature for her age. We did find pictures of my mother-in-law when she was in elementary school, and my daughter looks almost identical to her, except she has my hair color and eye shape. A main thing are her imaginary friends, Leah and Leo. The one that sticks out the most is her telling me Leo's being really mean one day. A little later, she was walking through the room and then tripped and fell, but the way she fell didn't look right. She got a shocked look on her face and yelled, "Leah, why are you pushing me?" And honestly, it did look like she was being pushed. Since then, there's been a lot of unexplainable things happening around the house, things moving out of the corner of my eye and stuff like that. My daughter doesn't talk so much about my mother-in-law anymore, but since she stopped doing that, the paranormal stuff picked up a lot. She did tell me that Leah's kind of mean a lot, but that's okay because Leo stops her. After recording this story, I realized that it was way shorter than I expected it to be. So, here are 2 bonus stories that I was going to put in my next video. I hope you enjoy. Church. The doors to the church were large and sturdy, made of dense dark oak. The pastor pushed as many pews against it as he could and was relieved at knowing this was the only entrance. He had been warned many times of how much of a fire hazard it was to have only one exit, but now he thanked the Lord that he had never bothered to make another. He went and sat at the foot of the altar, a rosary clenched tightly in his hands. He kept his eyes fixed on those massive oak doors and prayed harder than he ever had. From his bunk room, he could hear the radio still broadcasting the terrified voice of the announcer. "The police are advised that everyone stay indoors. If you are in public, find the closest shelter that can and board yourself in. They won't tell us what's going on. Just stay inside and away from..." Suddenly, a loud banging and screaming erupted from the radio. The pastor flinched and the announcer's screams, and his grip tightened on the rosary. The screams turned to static and echoed throughout the empty church. The pastor rose to his shaking feet and made his way over to the confessions. He entered the small compartment and tried to calm his erratic breathing. He could still hear the static, and now he could hear the distant sounds of sirens and screaming. He knelt his head and prayed for forgiveness. Forgiveness for sleeping with Mrs. Henderson while her husband was away on business. Forgiveness for ignoring the bag of kittens he had stumbled across on that rainy day all those years ago. Forgiveness for fathering a bastard child when he was a teenager. Forgiveness for then running from that young mother and her baby. Forgiveness for blocking the church doors and ignoring the screams and bangings he heard from the other side of it. They had come to him as he was their pastor, their shepherd, the place of sanctuary and tranquility they had always known, and he had abandoned them. The smell of burning wood tickled his nostrils, and the pastor opened his eyes, where he had been confessing all of his shame. A candelabra had tipped and landed across the front of the confessional. The flames licked at the bottom of the box until it erupted into a ball of flame. The pastor pushed against the door, but it wedged shut by the metal candelabra. He screamed and threw his body against the wood, failing over and over again to break it. The flames grew higher, and smoke started to billow into the box. Choking and gasping for air, the pastor began to cry and beg for the Lord to save him. He could no longer hear the people outside screaming for him. All he heard was his own screams and the crackling of the fire. The confessional cooked the pastor alive, and the church began to burn. The pastor had locked his flock out, leaving them to the wolves, and now the Lord had locked him in and cast him into hellfire. Side effects. It wasn't until after the 4th dose, the second booster, that the side effects began in earnest. Of course, there had been the common symptoms after the first 3. Lethargy, fever, aches, and pains. Everyone got those to some extent, but it varied with the shot. The real side effects didn't set in for me until the morning of the 2nd day after the 4th dose. I spent most of the day prior on the couch drinking juice and writing out the symptoms. I felt fully recovered by breakfast the next day, if anything sharper and clearer than before. As he sat across from me, he was going on, as had become habit, about how I was giving up on a day of my life to sickness unnecessarily, that the whole thing was no big deal for someone my age and health, and why would I subject myself to what was effectively a mass human experiment? It violates all the rules of medical ethics, to say nothing of the politics, and still nobody knew anything about long-term side effects. You just went and let Big Pharma rewrite your DNA without a second thought. As he began again, inevitably, to compare it to Tuskegee experiment, his words seemed to devolve into a kind of variable hum. Though I still got the gist, and I saw, for the first time, the lights inside his brain and knew intuitively what each one did and what it was for and how to turn it to a different use. I reached out with a knot hand I'd never had before and shifted a pulsing oak spot to a steady, deep, and mellow blue, like the light filtering down at the bottom of the seafloor. I knew in that moment how it looked. that precise shade, though I'd never been. The hum faded, but I could tell by the dancing red and green lights on either side that inside his head, he was still going on. Still heard his own voice, though outside is my new world. All was peaceful. I let him go on like that for a time, admiring the way the lights played across the surface and the depths of his brain, reading what he meant to say, though I'd taken his noise away. I came to understand the darkest, deepest light then. I saw the fear at his core, how it drove the other lights, how they buzzed and blinked in time to it. I took it away then, drew it out and let it dissipate across his surface. I felt the expanding hollow with my newfound light, glowing and steady. I gave him peace, knowing he'd sit there, silent, noiseless forever now. I left the shell of him intact, ethereal, where my light leaked through. He'd keep that way. If I ever came back and changed my mind and wanted to see his lights again. That done, I rose up into my new sky, passing through the ceiling without disturbance, arcing up to where I could see the lights of all the brains below pulsing, vibrating, waiting for my not touch. Outside I felt the others, my new brothers and sisters rising with me. I angled off, converging towards them. I recalled the warning, something less than 1% of users may report unknown side effects. But I felt fine. Thank you guys for watching. I'm really happy to have been able to share this story and give you a sneak peek of what was supposed to be in the next video. If you have any questions, I'll be leaving a link to both the post and their account down below. I will also be leaving the links, of course, to the other 2 stories that I read after, the main story. I'd also like to remind everyone that Thankmas is still on December 11th, and we'd be so happy if you join us. If you have a story time that you'd like me to narrate, there will be more information below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.